Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Gen X Lounge, where we discuss the pop culture today and look back at the pop culture of yesterday. But mostly, we just shoot the shit. And with me tonight, co-host extraordinaire, Dutch is here.
What up?
Man, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing just great. And
Good.
you know,
Glad you're
once
alive.
again, as I'm so used to saying, this is all my fault.
Yeah, it is all your fault. And dragging into the problem that you have caused, we have from the Kaiju Transmission Podcast, we have Kyle and Matt. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
We're late.
Doing good. From what I understand, I'm here to talk about a movie that we can't seem to escape. But hey, glad to be here anyway.
I'm glad you're here. Yeah, you are late. Well, this is a solid about 2 hours later than we normally record. So me and Dutch might fall asleep and just leave it. And just leave.
We all might fall asleep.
Just leave the show to you guys. So like I said, you guys are from the Kaiju Transmissions Podcast, and I just listened to I literally today just finished your last episode. It's a deep dive. It was a deep dive on Time of the Apes.
Good
it's a great Mystery Science Theater episode.
Is a great Mystery Science Theater episode. I think probably one of the first ones I ever saw. Back in its original, whenever it originally aired, I was a junior in high school when I saw that episode. I want to say it was like the third or fourth episode I had ever seen. So it made an impression on me, and I was like, as soon as I saw you guys were doing it, I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. I am like all about listening to this fucking podcast on Time of the Apes, which is a terrible hour and a half long movie that is made from 11 hours of a TV show, if I'm not mistaken.
They did that a lot back in the day.
Compilation. Brian, didn't you say you wanted to watch the entire series and review it?
Yeah, you guys had said if the new Planet of the Apes movie gets a sequel that you would do the entire series, and I volunteered to be. I would 100% watch 11 hours of that and talk about it. I think it'd be it's right in my wheelhouse. So, how's everybody doing? Everybody's good?
Great.
Yeah, cool. We have a little bit of news, but we have a lot of back in the day. So let's get to news you can use. News you can use. Planet of the Apes opened Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Thursday, Friday. Is the first movie since Godzilla X Kong to break 50 million in its opening weekend. It actually did 59 million in the US and 130 worldwide. So that's cool. Movies are back, baby. And speaking of Godzilla X Kong, apparently it's missing audio when you stream it on Amazon.
It got what was the Mummy 27 trailer.
So yeah, what the hell is that about? So if you buy it streaming on Amazon, the entire third act has no dialogue. Is that
I mean, to be fair, like it may as well not.
I'm sure they'll correct it and upload the right one, but I don't know, man. This is why I just stick with Blu-ray.
Isn't it still in theater? Like, isn't it playing in theater still in some places? Like right now.
Yeah.
That's
the day that's the age we're living in. Like movies come out so quick now, which I think is why everyone is, I don't know, people younger than us are so pissed off that -1 is, why isn't it out yet? I'm just gonna pirate it and
announce it on
doing.
Twitter,
it's like, man,
pirate it and...
You guys would not have survived the 90s.
No.
Right.
We had to go to the bootleggers.
Oh, yeah.
We had to go to the greasy New York bootleggers and get our movies.
Yep. I remember those days.
I still have some of my Video Daikaiju VHS.
I have a lot of them. I have a lot of those tapes. That I don't know. It's like I don't even have a working VHS player, but some of those like that I got at certain conventions and stuff. There's like a weird sentimental value to them, and I'm just like, I can just stay in the closet forever. And
I think aside from like my own Godzilla movies that I made when I was a kid building suits, I think the only VHS tapes I have for some reason I have Godzilla versus Biollante, and I have Pulgasari.
That's a random combination for sure.
I don't know. I was like, these are in good shape. I don't want to throw them out. And Pulgasari's not out on any other format as far as I know.
Yeah. Might be worth something. I wish I had my old VHSs that I recorded off TV.
I still have a few of them, but all the ones from the ones from the furthest back, I don't think I have any of them. But like, I can only imagine like all the nostalgia if I had like because that's how like Godzilla's Revenge. I think I first recorded off some TNT marathon. It was playing at like 2 a.m. My grandpa recorded it for me. And some Monster Vision thing where it was like, I was asleep, or some would be airing during the day when I was at school, and so some of those movies, like some of those movies, that back then were more obscure, like King Kong Escapes, was on the Sci-Fi Channel. That's how I saw it, and
same.
A lot of those old TV broadcasts I would love to have. I know there are some people that have ripped them and put them up on certain torrent sites, especially some of the Monster Vision stuff. I know the Monster Vision, one of their Monster Zero broadcasts is floating around out there. But that's how I saw a lot of those, and there would probably be something magical about seeing some of the commercials in between.
Yeah, the commercials for me would be what
the
made
Sears
it cool.
commercial. Yeah,
the Sears local... HVAC commercial. Have you talked about that commercial on this podcast? Because that commercial is like in every person in younger than like
me.
Yeah, should remember that commercial. It ran constantly for like 5 years.
What one was it?
It was a Sears air conditioner commercial, and it was like, it was like a husband and a wife. The guy is reading a newspaper at the table, and she's like, they're talking about it's so hot, and she's like, yesterday you said you'd call today, and he's like, I'll call them tomorrow, and then she's like, you'll call now, and the guy goes,
I do remember that commercial.
I'll call now.
I'll call now. Yes, that's the one.
Everybody that I talk to within 10 years ahead or behind me remembers that commercial almost like verbatim.
Yeah, I do remember that commercial.
Yeah,
I love
you can't not.
We always had the Crazy Eddie commercials out here, which is probably before your time. He was like a lunatic who owned a bunch of chain TV hi-fi stores in the New York area, and he eventually got arrested and went to jail for tax evasion.
That sounds right for Crazy Eddie.
There's actually there's a really good documentary about him actually, but yeah, we used to always get his commercials. Even though I was out near Philly, we would still get his commercials.
That is one thing I miss in the streaming era of the thing I miss the most about TV, which I guess it still exists if anyone for some reason still has cable, but like having nothing to do and channel surfing and just stumbling into a movie like halfway in and being like, what the hell is this? And then watching all of it. Like that's how I saw like War of the Gargantuas for the first time, stuff like that. The second thing I miss is just the crazy local commercials that you get, or like the public access programming that was always insane.
Post 9/11 mattress commercial.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember my God, I remember that one.
That's a classic. Wow. That is a classic.
Yeah, I remember that.
Amazing.
Shit. Yeah. What else we got? We got a Galactus. That's cool. Good news.
We do. It's that British
Ralph Ineson.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm assuming he's just gonna be doing voice work for it, and it's gonna be some
probably
CG.
So I don't know about that, because like he kind of has like a head that is sort of galactic, and I'm saying that with all due respect. He has kind of like almost like a Galactus type of look to him. It was definitely not a casting choice that like I mean I didn't see that coming, but it could be one of those casting choices like when Kelsey Grammer was cast as Beast or like Heath Ledger as the Joker, where it's like this is so out of left field that this could be great.
One thing that I mean, as much is more or less checked out as I am on the Marvel stuff at the moment, one thing that I don't think they've really ever truly missed on is casting. So
I would agree.
I feel like, you know, they'll be fine, and you know, hopefully this will be the movie to kind of, I don't know, quit screwing around and pull me back in.
Finally give us the Fantastic Four we've been waiting for.
No Galactus cloud. They like just please.
Yeah, it's not a cloud, you know.
Yeah, that movie is the movie, like you said, that to me, like they gotta get this one right. Like I love the Fantastic Four. I think, you know, I have hopes for Deadpool and Wolverine, but I really want Fantastic Four to be good.
As do I. They're my favorite Marvel team.
Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, I'll never be fully out. Like, will I be back? Like, I'd like to get to the point where I was before. It's like I had to be there opening weekend.
Like
I haven't felt like that in forever.
Now it's more like I kind of just cherry pick the stuff that interests me, which isn't inherent. It's not a bad thing in and of itself. But like, you know, I don't feel like the obligation that, I need to see this because I need to see what it's setting up. Now it's just like, there's a billion different directions that
it honestly feels like, and even by their own admission, that after, and we've talked about this here before, just after Endgame, after they just completely stuck that landing, it almost was like, where the hell do you go? And it seems like they sort of maybe had an idea of what they wanted to build towards, but then you had the X-Men and the Fantastic Four kind of in a little bit of a flux, and they were trying, like, sort of waiting to see how they were going to come into things. And I just feel like it's been kind of a couple of hits, you know, a couple of misses, and some of the misses weren't even of bad quality.
Yeah, you know? Like even like some of the stuff that people say is like the worst. It's like, it's fine. It's just
like the Marvels.
It's just boring and it doesn't do anything. Like,
yeah, I mean, it was like the Marvels wasn't terrible.
It's just like, that was a movie, you know.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like Thor: Love and Thunder, wasn't a big fan of.
Thor: Love and Thunder was bad.
Black Panther 2, liked a lot of it, but really couldn't stand
the only things that have come since Endgame that I've really 100% been like, that was awesome, that was really good, are
Spider-Man No Way Home,
Spider-Man, Guardians 3, and really the only of the TV shows that I really liked was probably Loki, especially the first season. Everything else has been Werewolf by Night was fun.
I liked Werewolf by Night. That was good.
that was fun.
Everything else was pretty kind of in one ear, out the other.
A lot of forgettable,
you know. TV next day, I barely remember.
I loved WandaVision.
Oh yeah, WandaVision I liked
until it became a big CGI fight at the end.
Yeah, the finale, I don't think quite stuck the landing, but it was overall pretty good.
The only thing that was weird about WandaVision was how it just seems like they completely ignored what happened in Doctor Strange too. Because I thought she had her arc where she kind of wasn't angry anymore, and then they just kind of made her, you know, evil again.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
if you look at like some of the behind the scenes stuff on that movie, it was such a it just sounds like such a clusterfuck where
things they constantly changing.
Yeah, constantly changing, like very huge things, like almost daily.
I feel like that's one of the things that James Gunn, when he took over DC, he was adamant about from the start, was like, this is not the best way to do films, and we're not gonna do films like that. I hope that sticks around, because, you know, I'm excited for Superman next year. I hope Fantastic Four, because Fantastic Four and Superman are supposed to come out like a week or two apart, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it will be hard for me to see Fantastic Four keeping its release date because of how I don't even think they've started filming yet, and Superman is going to wrap filming in July.
Yeah.
So they'll have plenty of time to make their date. I'd be surprised if Fantastic Four didn't move.
Yeah. I think with Marvel, the Marvel stuff, they just drowned everyone in content.
Yep.
I don't even know if I like to use the word show or movie. It's just content, and it's just like it's
before the streaming bubble burst.
Yeah, and so much of it was mediocre. Like I think that they should have just take like a 5-year. Don't be afraid to take like a 3-year, 5-year break after Endgame.
They are afraid to take a break.
Yeah. Can you imagine how huge it would be if they took a break and then they didn't come back until they did a Fantastic Four movie?
That would have been
would have been huge.
It definitely.
I mean, I don't think it would have hurt him at this point.
And you still could have had Deadpool in between because that he's kind of his own wacky thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad they finished the Guardians trilogy.
Yep.
And I'm glad we got No Way Home. But like, we also got the other. I mean, we've got 2 Spider-Man movies post Endgame, which they still could have done, and they could have done Guardians 3. But I mean, dude, did we need Eternals?
No. Well, yeah, that's the other thing is like they introduced so much stuff back then. Like when you think about the first 2 phases, what was easy to keep people engaged was it's like, okay, you have your core heroes, you have Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Thor. They each get a movie, then they get a team up movie. And then it branches out a little bit when you start doing Guardians and Ant-Man, but it's still manageable. It's like, okay, there's a couple new Doctor Strange, a couple new things here and there. And then that kind of leads up into Endgame. And then after Endgame, it's like, here's Shang-Chi, here's She-Hulk, here's Moon Knight, here's the Eternals, here's... Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, what is happening?
Nobody cares about those characters in the same way either. Like they lost... I also think the biggest frustration with that is they introduced the multiverse, but that's just become their solve for poor storytelling. They're just going to do something for the multiverse, and that's going to fix something. They just need a reset.
And it kind of sucks because it kind of ruined it for DC because like DC were like the pioneers of the multiverse.
Yeah, with the Crisis.
And so, I mean, Marvel was doing their multiverse stuff a long time ago too, but DC were the first ones, I believe, to do it. And so then when obviously they come out, they have the Flash, which had its own share of problems, but I contend is not as bad of a movie as it gets crap for being. Just the special effects are really bad. But I actually dug that movie on the sense of like the story was actually, even though it was about like, you know, the Black Zero event from Man of Steel coming back and stuff, the real story was just a small story about the main character and his mom.
Yeah.
And I think these movies can do well you can keep spectacle up, but taking the stakes more personal like that, you can kind of connect with people a little bit better. So like, I'm obviously in a Superman movie, you're going to expect that there's going to be some world ending threat, but I mean, does that have to be the real conflict?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also like because we were talking about the new characters introduced after Endgame into the MCU, and it's like another thing is management wise, I don't think they're really striking while the iron's hot. Like out of all those characters, the one where everyone was like, "That's great casting. That was actually an enjoyable movie." Like cool was Shang-Chi, and they haven't done shit with him.
Yeah,
since.
he's the best character they introduced.
And there's been a billion other things since then.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, aside from like the huge big CGI fest at the end of the movie, which is, you know, prerequisite.
Par for the course.
I thought Shang-Chi was great.
Yeah, but like they haven't done anything with that character. Simu Liu, when they ask him, he's like, I don't know, I'm just waiting around to see if someone will call me. And
then some clickbait website will take that and twist that and be like, there's movement on the new Shang-Chi.
Yeah, exactly.
And even when you think about some of the stuff that was already there, like the Marvels, like that first movie made over $1 billion. And yes, some of that is all in the pre-Endgame, you know, okay, I need to see this to understand Endgame kind of hype.
Well, Captain Marvel was that before Endgame, right?
Yeah.
That was between Infinity War and Endgame, right?
Yeah. But you don't get to $1 billion on that alone. Yeah. But then it's like, okay, they did that, and then they wait, and you know, at the time they were making like, oh, this is the new big character that's gonna like be a huge part of everything, and then they didn't do anything with that forever, And then they waited forever to make a sequel where they team her up with these characters from these TV shows that they also haven't done anything with since. And everyone's just like, I don't care.
I agree.
It's just they need to just like focus on like a core set of characters, do a little thing here and there off the beaten path, like, you know, Deadpool or whatever, and just go from there. Like, I don't know why they thought we're going to introduce a billion characters and a billion different TV shows, and that's going to be the next, you know, setup for a next Avengers thing. And then, like, I guess instead of another event, the next Avengers movie, the big team up event movie is going to be the Thunderbolts. But it's like, does anyone care?
No.
I
Nobody cares.
mean,
All right. On that note, one last bit of news, and it's an RIP. We came into a Gen X episode, a Gen X Lounge episode.
Oh
about
boy,
dying.
yeah. I know where this is
but
going.
The king of cult movies, Roger Corman, died at 98. We're all four of us are monster kids, and so we are all well acquainted with Roger Corman. Chances are you've seen something that Roger Corman did, even if you did not grow up on a diet of bad sci-fi movies.
You've definitely seen a movie by someone who wouldn't have had a career without him.
So he was a producer, director, sometimes actor. He directed 55 films. IMDb lists him with 491 producer credits.
Yep.
Started work in the 20th Century Fox mailroom, earning $32.50 a week. Provided ideas for The Gunfighter starring Gregory Peck, and when he received no credit, he left Fox and decided he would work in film by himself. He used the GI Bill to study English literature at University of Oxford. Returned to Los Angeles and sold a script for a film that would end up being titled Highway Dragnet, and he also worked on that film as a producer for free for the experience. And then he used that money from that script to fund his first film, Monster from the Ocean Floor, in 1954. He produced that using his own company, Palo Alto. It was released by Robert Lippert, who is also synonymous with Grade Z movies and Mystery Science Theater episodes. And like, dude, too long didn't read. Like, his Wikipedia is insane. His movies that he produced have their own Wikipedia page. Sometimes he would produce multiple movies in like the same week or two.
Yeah.
He was like the king of shoestring budgets, getting stuff in on time, getting stuff in under budget, recycling monster suits, recycling sets, recycling actors and actresses, everything, stock footage. And then additionally, though, he like handled the distribution for like a lot of foreign directors, including Kurosawa.
Yep.
And he gave a lot of directors their first, starts, like Martin Scorsese, Jonathan Demme, James Cameron, Ron Howard, Francis Ford Coppola. And then he helped actors get started too. Dennis Hopper, Jack Nicholson, Bruce Dern, William Shatner. So he was a real one, man.
Mm-hmm.
So 98 years old, though. Good on him. He lived a long time.
A bummer, but that's a great life. And unlike a lot of people from his generation that died sooner, he was able to, see, how much of an impact he had on people. I think about someone like, Willis O'Brien, who died in the 60s. It's like there was no fandom. He died poor and heartbroken.
Yeah.
And
that's a really sad story.
And that's the godfather of the modern,
giant monster
adventure movie.
Monster on the Loose movie, yeah.
Right, yeah. So, Corman, he was able to live through that. He got, a lifetime achievement Oscar or whatever. And, there's a great documentary called Corman's World where, it talks to a lot of those people that became a billion times bigger than him. And, they're all just kind of recounting, what it was like working for him way back in the day. And it's a great documentary. There's a part at the end where Jack Nicholson starts to like get really emotional, just talking about, yeah, I'm Jack Nicholson, but I wouldn't be here without Roger Corman. So,
wasn't like Little Shop of Horrors? Wasn't that?
Yep. It would. I don't know what Hollywood or American cinema would look like if there was no Roger Corman. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean that's
He
crazy
gave
to
us,
say because
he gave us
that.
Carnosaur.
Yeah, he did. You know what? Carnosaur came out today in 1993.
Oh, happy Carnosaur Day.
Yeah, happy Carnosaur Day, everybody. Yeah.
Joey's going to be celebrating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy, dude, he loves Carnosaur.
Oh yeah,
Holy
Joey
cow.
is. Yeah, he's living it up on Carnosaur Day, I'm sure.
But I mean, even like I said, if you're not a fan of particularly, B movies or C movies or Z movies, as a lot of his were, you've seen something that he's had a hand in. It's
and if you're not a
impossible
fan
that
of
you
Roger Corman, you're most likely, definitely still a fan of someone who he gave
absolutely
a shot.
Yeah, exactly.
And he always said, I'll give anyone a shot, and if they do a good job, they'll never have to work for me again.
Yeah, exactly. But he had a stable of actors and actresses.
Dick Miller. Yeah.
Beverly Garland was in a bunch of
him and put him in everything.
Yeah. So
he had James Horner do Battle Beyond the Stars, and that was kind of like the precursor to his Star Trek II Wrath of Khan score. So he got him going a little bit.
He did the Fantastic Four movie that has never seen the light of day. Officially never seen the light of day.
I wonder if we will, because it wasn't okay. So really quickly, wasn't the rumor that's been told time and time again that Marvel acquired it so they could destroy it? Do we really think they destroyed the camera negative of that movie?
I doubt it.
I mean, the documentary that I watched maybe earlier this year seemed like it was probably lost. The movie itself definitely wasn't finished. Like the ADR, a lot of the voices need to be.
They never actually intended to release it anyway.
Yeah, it was never intended to be released in the first place. It was just made because they didn't want to lose the license to make one eventually. Basically, is what it boils down.
That's one of those things like the Star Wars Holiday Special, where it's like, it's so easy to find now that they might as well just dump it on Disney Plus. Like, who even cares?
Dude, if they put out like an HD version of the Star Wars Holiday Special, that would be a big deal.
That would be amazing.
Because of
that would
how
be a huge deal. Yeah, for sure. And then I haven't seen anything new, but I know Kyle has. So Kyle, this is we do a little now playing section.
And now, our feature presentation.
Thank you, disembodied voice.
Yes.
So, Kyle, so you saw the new Planet of the Apes. Matt, did you see it?
I saw it on last Friday. Yeah.
All right. Spoiler free. Kyle Bird, 5-minute review, 5 minutes or less. Go.
It's okay. I'm a fan of the Planet of the Apes movies. The first series, like the original and Conquest and Escape, are amazing. And then, Beneath is okay. Not too into Battle. The Tim Burton remake is a piece of trash, but some of Rick Baker's best work, at least, which seems to kind of just be his thing, is like
poor Rick Baker.
Yeah, he's the gorilla guy.
Yeah, he'll make a great gorilla, and then the movie will turn out bad, and he'll just be like, "Look, guys, I did everything.
I tried."
And then the recent trilogy, I love.
I do too.
And so once Disney acquired Fox and they got this, it was like, okay, it was only a matter of time before they went back to the well. And I don't know, I didn't hate it, but I'm not as over the moon about it as most people. I think on my Letterboxd, I gave it a 3 out of 5. It just I don't know. It has a lot. I don't know. To me, it felt like it had a lot of the edges sanded off of it a little bit. Kind of like Battle of the Planet of the Apes, where it just was like, oh, hey, we can make these a lot less confrontational and a lot less like dark. And, it only kind of flirts with the more heady philosophical stuff that you come to expect from the franchise. And in place of that, it is, just a lot of like, okay, here's our new characters and here's the setup for what will likely just be a bunch of sequels. So I don't know. It's people use the word Disney-fied to say like, oh, they made it like a G-rated, kid-friendly, and it's not that. It's Disney-fied in the sense that
It's woke. Is it woke?
no, don't. Yeah,
Planet of the Woke Monkeys.
yeah. Here's a historically woke franchise that we're going to complain is woke now, but no. But yeah,
if they think that's woke, let them actually read the original.
Yeah,
novel.
let them. Yeah, watch it. Go actually watch the old movies. My God. But yeah, it just seems like it's more concerned about, okay, how do we kickstart a new franchise? And I'm sure we're gonna see more sequels, and then like Disney Plus TV show, whatever, and it's just kind of like
Holiday
been absorbed
specials.
into that. But I mean, it's an entertaining enough movie. I thought it was too long. It's like 2.5 hours.
Okay.
So it's on the weaker end of the series for me. I would still put it above the Tim Burton movie, and I'd put it above Battle, but not a favorite. Good enough that I would see another one. And the new characters are interesting enough, but I wish it went harder. When I go to buy a ticket to Planet of the Apes, it's like I'm asking them to give me something that's going to make me
hard.
Yeah. It's I want to see something that's going to make me, feel horrible about humanity and like punch me in the gut.
Are we supposed to go to theaters to get away from that shit?
Bird he loves misery. That's his,
That's why it's a perfect franchise for me. The second movie ends with the hero purposely blowing up the entire planet. That's awesome.
The second of the
the original movie.
All right, I have a confession.
Oh God, he's gonna say something that's the worst. So
this is So okay, I own all the Apes movies except for the Tim Burton one, but I've only seen the first two, the Tim Burton one and the first of that last trilogy. So I need to go back through and watch those, and I feel like
you should at least definitely watch the new. I mean, you should watch the original for sure, because that's a bona fide sci-fi classic.
So you've seen the original, you've seen Beneath, you've seen the remake, and you've seen Rise.
Correct.
So man, you're missing out on like Conquest is great. Escape is
go back through and, like,
Escape is my second favorite of the original trilogy.
Yeah, the Dawn and War were both great. You need to just like
Dawn is essentially, Rise of the Planet of the Apes is essentially a remake of Conquest. If you think about it.
Little bit. I don't know. The Conquest. I mean, I see what you mean.
Like the rise of Caesar, learning how to and stuff like that. I mean, it's not. I shouldn't say it's like a
uprising.
There's a lot of the same kind of parallels, though, in the way they were telling the story. Maybe is a better way to say it.
But yeah, I don't know. I wish the new one was less of a. Here we're just setting up more sequels and more like, hey, like teach me about how horrible humanity is.
Man, just like you don't watch the news, like you'll be fine.
Yeah. Dude, setting up for sequels is legit teaching you about how horrible humanity is.
That's
exactly
right.
I see what you did there.
Well, depending on how political you're willing to take things, we could be getting a very unwanted sequel. coming soon.
Dear God.
Oh God. So that is all we got for feature presentation. So I guess at this point we'll just go do our back in the day, and we got a lot of back in the day. So let's go back in the day.
Back in the day.
Oh man, back in the day. So I am, as we discussed prior to the show, like 10 years older than all you guys. So
we're not real Gen Xers, so
no, we're frauds.
You're still real to me. You're Zennials, right? Is that what you are?
I guess, yeah.
They keep changing like the mark for the Zennial. I think so. We're old.
We're millennials.
If you had a rotary phone, you had a
rotary
phone. An honorary member there.
You guys talk. I mean, we just talked about setting VCRs to record.
I was born in '85. Is that like close enough?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Technically a millennial, just on the outside of Gen X.
It's a mindset.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So I think you got it. So this one though is a big deal to me because man, my 10-year-old brain, my mind was blown. In 1984, May 10th, 1984 to be exact. When this album came out, I was already like a burgeoning metalhead. I was a huge Def Leppard fan. I was a fourth grader, so it's as metalhead as a fourth grader in the 80s could be. I was a huge Def Leppard fan. And then this video came on MTV, and I don't know if you guys remember.
We were not a gleam in our parents' eyes yet.
Okay, so you probably never saw the video.
I remember the video.
You do remember the video?
And I remember, when I got older, hearing how controversial the video was, even though it's like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
It's like a cartoon.
But yeah, this is ridiculous. This was actually offensive.
Yeah. So here's the video of which I speak.
What do you think you're doing? Twisted Sister. What kind of a man desecrates a defenseless textbook?
So, of course, we're talking about Twisted Sister's third album, which came out May 10th, 1984, Stay Hungry, clocking in at a lean 36 minutes. It is 9 tracks. I Wanna Rock, of course, is one of the 2 big hits, but obviously the biggest hit is this one. And then, like I said, the video for I Wanna Rock and this song were both fucking huge. They were the coolest thing I had ever seen in 1984. And for Christmas 1984, I asked for Stay Hungry for a Christmas gift.
This Dad Rock now.
It is Dad Rock because we're all dads and we still rock out to it.
I'm not a dad that I know of.
Well, but I asked for this for Christmas 1984 for my aunt. My aunt went to the record store to buy it, saw the album cover, which is a made-up Dean Snyder holding a bloody bone, possibly a human bone, who knows, and then flipped it around and saw that one of the songs is called "Burn in Hell," and then promptly
which made an appearance in the movie
Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And she promptly went home, rang up my mom, and I had some splaining to do. And I did not get Stay Hungry for Christmas in 1984. I didn't get Stay Hungry until I was a grown man. But I have it now.
Were you still hungry, though, when you got there?
And I was still hungry, and I still play it. That album kicks massive amounts of ass. Burn in Hell is a fucking great song. It's almost a Black Sabbath song. Like it's like a sludgy, slow. It's fucking great. That's a great album. There's a great documentary on Twisted Sister called I think it's called Twisted Effin' Sister. It was on Netflix for a long time. It's fantastic. It talks about how they started in Long Island as this basically a massively popular bar band, but just could not get signed to a major label. Highly recommend it. So that is. That for me was a huge album when I was a kid. Those 2 videos were like the most badass things. I mean, they're silly now when you look at them, but like at the time they were like we all in 4th grade thought that was the coolest shit we'd ever seen was, the principal, or I guess he was a teacher, getting beat up by Twisted Sister, and that's Mark Metcalf, who was in Animal House, who's in both of those Twisted Sister videos.
You just sort of you inspired me to think of a question here real quick.
Hmm.
What I mean, I'm assuming that was your hardest sell. For the rest of you guys, what album was like the hardest sell to get your parents to buy for you when you were a kid?
I never got like any pushback on like, I'm not getting you this, or why do you want this? But there are some things where like my mom would just be like, are you sure? I don't know what I see. I don't understand what you see in this, so it's like, but everyone, I don't know. My family was pretty cool with, letting me get Slayer records and stuff like that. I think the closest thing is when I was in high school, I was reading Marilyn Manson's autobiography, and my mom was just kind of like,
Sonny, are you okay?
Yeah, she was just kind of like,
What
is that man as bad as they say he is?
And you're like, he's way worse.
Insane. Yeah, I'm like, don't read this. But no, he's actually, pretty. He's a smart guy, and it's fine. I'm fine. And she's like, okay, well, if you say you're fine, I trust you, honey. And it's like, okay, yeah, kind of stuff like that. And at the same time, my brother was listening to a lot of like he was getting really into like a lot of like gangster rap and stuff at the time. And I don't know, when we were kids, like my brother was like 12 and blaring like, Notorious B.I.G. on the family vacation and stuff. And my mom was just like, okay, if this is what you guys really want to listen to.
That was like my sister had like Dr. Dre, The Chronic, and like Doggy Style. And
yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like I was too young to be listening to this crap, but I would sneak in her room and like play this shit on her boombox, and I was like, this is just insane. So yeah, I remember in '96 trying to convince my grandmother to buy me Busta Rhymes' The Coming, and she kind of was like, well, this doesn't look too offensive. Like, never mind the parental advisory on it. But she never liked it when I came home with a new Ozzy Osbourne record. I'm like, all the guys that are really, truly not,
Yeah, we growing up, we would listen to like 3-6 Mafia and Bone Thugs and Harmony, but probably like Metallica was the one that, like, my parents don't care now, but like Metallica, my cousin, his name is Ryan, he would come over and he would like bring all the newest albums and stuff.
Like, what's this album load? What does this mean?
Exactly.
What's on this cover?
What's on this cover? What's this a picture of? Yeah.
I grew up during the Satanic Panic, so like,
oh yeah,
that shit was like no joke. I mean, it was no joke. I remember, like, AC/DC meant Against Christ, Devil's Children, and Kiss meant Knights in Satan's Service, and like just the craziest shit. And I remember, Twisted Sister was put on a list of like the Filthy 15 or something, and he had to go testify in front of like it was a whole thing. So yeah,
the closest I ever lived through something like that was probably like the post Columbine.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
Yeah,
because it was like, okay,
like
anybody with
Marilyn
Manson,
Eminem,
Slipknot was getting a lot of shit.
Slipknot, Eminem, like anyone that had like violent lyrics, like people looked at you funny. So like if you were a metalhead in high school,
God forbid you wore a duster.
Back then, it was like people were like, "Oh, is this guy crazy?" And,
yeah, I didn't give a shit. I still had Ozzy and Sabbath shirts and Metallica.
Oh no, I was before and after 9/11. I was still wearing my Anthrax t-shirts.
As you fucking should.
Did you guys get grief for like Mortal Kombat came out, right? And it was the most violent video game at the time, like decapitations and people getting their spines ripped out and stuff. There was that whole like this is fire, mass shootings and all this stuff.
Parent outrage about Mortal Kombat was a
my parents like we were playing all the time.
Yeah, I just bought every Mortal Kombat game without an issue.
Yeah, no, my mom was always cool about it.
I can't explain it.
No, my mom was always cool about it. And she was like, okay, like that's fake, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not dumb, Mom.
Where I got into big trouble, and this is going to sound hilarious, was when I would watch Beavis and Butthead. Remember the stir about Beavis and Butthead, and it was primarily fueled by what was that incident that happened?
It was like a kid burned his house down.
Yeah, and they found out he didn't have cable, but they blamed it on Beavis and Butthead anyway. And then Beavis and Butthead did an incredible episode commentary. Do you guys remember the where they got struck by lightning?
They
were watching a Ben Franklin special about him tying the key to a kite. They decide to go out and do the same damn thing, and they get struck by lightning, and they're in the hospital, and this chick comes to interview them, and he's like, oh yeah, there were like explosions, and there was a dude and with long hair, and she's like, I want to see what was on, and she pulls it open, Great American Minds, Ben Franklin, no, it can't be. What else were you watching? We watched some music videos, and then you see her news report, she's like blaming music videos.
And then when South Park came out, that was another big thing. I don't know. My family was always cool about it. Like anytime my mom like felt like she needed to have a conversation about something, I think now that I'm older and now that I'm also a parent, I think she always thought that like once she started trying to have that conversation, I was already like 10 steps ahead of her. Like Mortal Kombat, for instance, she'd be like, I checked it out and it's really violent. Are you sure that's something you want? And I'd be like, yeah. And she's like, okay, well, you understand it's all fake, right? And I'd be like, yeah, Mom, I know it's fake. Obviously, duh. What do you think? I'm dumb?
It's make-believe. I don't
And I think she would walk away being like, wow, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, maybe I don't need to explain this,
You may want to rip someone's head out by their spine, but we're not going to really do that.
And then my mom loved the Mortal Kombat movie. I don't know what
My dad took me to see that.
It was so sanitized, though.
It really is.
Yeah,
but I remember
like,
when that came out, it was like, oh, parents, I don't know if you should let your kids watch this. And then like,
I loved it.
Yeah, and my mom took me to see on my first old podcast, If It Bleeds, We Can Kill It. We used to record it like back when I lived with my mom, and like me and my co-host Trev were talking about that movie, and like she just like crashed the podcast, and she was like,
"That's awesome."
We mentioned Mortal Kombat, and she's like, "That was a good movie," and I was like, "Oh, Mom, come here." we gave her a mic, and we were like, she just started talking about the Mortal Kombat movie for like 10 minutes.
That's awesome. So also, I just happened to see that today was the Seinfeld finale back in 1990. Holy shit.
8?
I didn't write the date. Well, whatever it was, it was the Seinfeld finale. 7?
It would have had to have been 98.
It was 98.
98. Yeah, 98.
The year of Gino.
Because there was
same year as Gino. Yeah.
Because during that broadcast was the first time they showed the New Year's
Godzilla commercial.
Godzilla trailer where like his tail knocks the ball.
Yes.
Wait,
and
the Seinfeld finale wasn't on New Year's.
No, but there was a Godzilla trailer. I don't think it was
There
that.
wasn't. No, but
It might not have been the finale. It was definitely during a
the
Seinfeld episode.
The Godzilla New Year's trailer came out on New Year's.
On New Year's,
Yeah.
because
Sure.
because it screwed me up because I thought
everybody thought it was
that they
real.
were-
It was actually
everybody
a really
thought
good
it was
piece of
real. Yeah,
marketing.
that they were actually doing the countdown. That was actually a brilliant bit of marketing. But we'll talk about that movie in a minute. But the Seinfeld finale.
Pretty much
So it was
all that
two-
marketing was brilliant, but yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing that was brilliant.
Right.
The finale was 2 episodes back to back, 77 million viewers, which made it the 4th most watched series finale of all time. A 30-second ad was $1 million, which is the highest ever for any non-sports ball related advertising at the time. It was widely panned. I still to this day think it's pretty terrible. Not as terrible as I thought.
It was just a clip show.
Yeah, it was not good.
The first half. Was.
Yeah. I mean, the whole concept of it was pretty lame. As great of a show as that was, they definitely didn't stick the landing. It was pretty well panned. And it aired the same night that Frank Sinatra died. And urban legend has it that it actually was so bad that it killed Frank Sinatra. So there you go.
But
yeah, it was
fan
not
of
good.
Seinfeld and was let down, huh?
Yeah, he was such a big fan and he just couldn't take it anymore. So, and we also have another anniversary, which is coming up, which would be the 16th of May, 2014, which makes it 10 years of the Monsterverse. So May 16th, 2014, we had the legendary films Godzilla, which led to the fucking insanity that we have now.
And now for our feature presentation.
Ain't that the truth?
Dude, I don't... So it's interesting. You said something at the beginning of your last episode of your podcast that Godzilla is in the zeitgeist or in the public consciousness.
Godzilla is officially
hot in the
mainstream.
streets.
He's mainstream, probably more so than he's been since the 70s, you said.
Yeah.
And I gotta agree. I mean, I wasn't as aware of things in the 70s. I was alive, but yeah, I can't think of a time in my life where Godzilla's been as big as he is currently. You know, the last movie is it's the second biggest hit of the year. It'll probably end up behind Planet of the Apes, but I mean, maybe not. It's right now. It's only behind Dune 2.
I can't believe how well it's
in
done,
box office.
honestly.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I
me
mean,
either.
Deadpool's probably going to blow it out.
Yeah,
of the water.
Oh
Deadpool's gonna make $1
yeah,
billion.
for sure. Yeah, Deadpool will end up. But for starting off the way it did, which is in a sort of a grounded, somewhat realistic,
Yeah,
take on
that got dropped
Godzilla.
real quick.
Yeah, and then it to where we are now, where there's Hollow Earth and just anything insane that you can imagine. I'm actually surprised they haven't brought aliens in yet, but I would assume that's coming.
That's got to be next, right?
I don't even.
That's a
It's
logical.
those things where I don't even know where you go aside from that. Like you have to do that if you. That's like the only place that makes sense now.
Yeah. So that movie, the 2014 movie. I mean, it was a pretty good hit. It wasn't. I don't think it was the hit that they anticipated it to be. It had a good opening weekend and had a big drop off in the second weekend. I think word of mouth, especially that Godzilla wasn't in it a lot, hurt it.
Yeah, it's
Bryan Cranston's character being killed off in the first 20 minutes.
That hurt it definitely. It's weird that up until like last week, that one was still not counting Skull Island because that's a Kong film. And I think Skull Island's still the top
as of right now,
the Monsterverse movies. But up until like a week ago, Godzilla 2014 was still the most successful of all of the Godzilla movies that they did. It just now got like dethroned by the new one. I think it's still got a little bit of way to go to beat Skull Island, but
what's sort of amazing about it is just thinking of like maybe it's because they already had Godzilla versus Kong in production, but Godzilla King of the Monsters came out. That movie didn't do well at all.
If Godzilla versus Kong wasn't already like knee deep, like it was filming when
they would have canned it. Yeah,
out.
they wouldn't have happened.
They would have either they would have canned it, or I think getting Kong in really helped. If they just put out King of the Monsters and didn't know what they were gonna do next, especially if they didn't have Kong, they would have been toast.
Yeah, I mean, we know like the Godzilla Kong New Empire like was supposed to be Son of Kong originally.
Yes.
So they had planned to move forward with Kong, and not necessarily Godzilla, and Godzilla gets kind of thrown in. So I think honestly, Kong helps the franchise more than people realize.
I think so too.
Well, I mean, I like this version of King Kong a lot.
He's actually my favorite incarnation, honestly, of Kong.
Yeah, he's awesome. I don't mind Godzilla.
With the opening this thing had, they're not gonna break these guys up. They're gonna at least do one more. If they do, the next movie is gonna be another one with both of them.
Yeah, I think they'll give them their trilogy.
Yep.
And I mean now, so we've now got a spin-off TV show, Monarch, that's now gotten a second season.
You also had the Kong animated series.
Yep, Kong animated show.
Which I would expect another season from.
Probably. And then did I hear correctly that there's at least another spin-off series of
There's
Monarch?
At least you got Monarch season 2, probably a second season of the Kong cartoon. But then that article had that word spin-off in there, and from what I have heard under the surface of things is there's at least 2 spin-off series like in some sort of development, early development.
Yeah,
it's going to be the Bernie podcast.
Probably going to be more on the way. So it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. Welcome to the modern world where we're getting what I said earlier.
Content, baby.
Content. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Let's get ready for content.
But let's go back to 2014 because I'm curious. I mean, we all discussed it at the time and everything too. But what were your thoughts then, and what do you think about that movie now? Like me and Dutch saw it together. I had gotten pre-screening tickets, and I think I left the theater wanting to like it a lot more than I did, although I did like it a lot. And I think I probably like it more now than I did when I saw it in the theater, but I think it's a good movie. And I think tonally it's almost an entirely different universe of movies than what it became. Yeah. But I'm curious what you guys think.
The true sequel to that is the Monarch series. Mm-hmm. That kind of brings it more into the same tone and the same.
It actually Monarch feels, and that was actually going to be the comment I was just going to make is like I thought Monarch, as far as bridging 2014 to like the really zany stuff that we're getting into, I think it did a mostly good job of kind of like creating a bridge there with the Hollow Earth stuff. And
I would agree with that because it still keeps things as grounded as 2014. It
Yeah.
feels like a sequel to 2014 and not, you know, part of whatever the hell is going on in, you know, Godzilla, Kong, you know,
The Frozen Empire.
So I'm with you, Brian. I kind of left the theater feeling like I wanted to like it more than I did, and I still kind of feel that way. It's the best shot movie of the bunch. I mean, I think Gareth did a great job with how he framed shots and stuff. I don't Aaron Taylor Johnson or whatever, his character, just kind of like a nothing burger for me.
Yeah,
And
you could
once
tape a 2x4 to the screen and it would have about the same amount of charisma as he does.
Yeah,
in the-
and once you kill off Bryan Cranston's character, the movie just like, I think
There's
it
no
drops
arc.
off. the cliff.
There's like zero arc to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You could win. You had it right there. It was right there. Come on.
Yeah, I agree. I think it has one of the best. I mean, dude, that his entrance at the airport still a
Incredible. Yeah.
Oh,
like a
amazing.
top
I,
in the entire series, not just in the legendary movies, but I mean in the Godzilla series as a whole. That's a top like 5 or 10 entrance.
I actually think
it's fucking great.
I think the reason there was that giant drop, like the movie made like $90 million its first weekend, which was insane. I don't think anybody thought it was going to do that well. But I think the reason it dropped as much as it did is because the marketing did a really great job of selling like not just a grounded story, but kind of a horror story. Like it was going to show the destruction and the death and all the different things.
The marketing. I said when I saw Godzilla -1, that feels like the movie that was advertised in 2014.
That's exactly right.
Well,
yes.
In 2014, it's grounded, but it is, at the end of the day, it is more of a monster mash kind of movie.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a very serious Godzilla as a metaphor for.
That's because the trailers make you think that
he's the
sending
bad.
us back to the Stone Age and all. They make you think that that's all about Godzilla, and I'm like, oh yeah. All right, yep, this is the tone I want. I mean, for me, like, I remember liking it well enough. Saw it a few more times. I really believe in Gareth Edwards as a filmmaker. And I think we're going to see really good things to come from him. I really appreciated for being basically a Cinderella story, what he was able to accomplish within the studio system. I really did appreciate that.
Well, he had the studio working. He had the studio system working against him, and then the big thing is he also had the Department of Defense working.
Yeah, which we didn't really learn until, frankly, recently.
You know, I don't know if Brian or any of your listeners are aware, but that was a movie that the American military and the American government were very heavily involved in. And there's a lot of stuff, if you look at, you know, some of the earlier screenplays and things that were really just neutered, including the Ford character that was supposed to be a lot more to him and he did have an arc originally. You know, but the American government, when they get into movie producing, they get very picky about how servicemen are portrayed. And, you know, you can't have him do anything that is mildly interesting. You can't show that he's flawed.
The depiction of nuclear weapons and all that.
All that stuff. And, you know, if people want to learn more, I would suggest going to the YouTube and going to the Kaiju Masterclass YouTube channel and looking at the panel that I did with Steve Rifle at last year's G-Fest, all about this, because we break down the whole history of the U.S. government and how they meddle in films and with a focus on kaiju movies, you know, American-made monster movies. And we also talk about how the Japanese, the JSDF has been just as guilty in some cases. But that movie was heavily tinkered with once the DOD got involved. And
there was also the follow-up that I think it was you and Steve did with the interview, the special thing that we did.
Yeah. We also have an interview with Matt Alford, who wrote a book about the subject, and there's a documentary called Theaters of War that he produced about this very subject matter of, you know, how, you know, a movie can start as one thing and then for a lot of reasons, you know, help save money on budget because, you know, the military will pay and, you know, they'll let you use their services and their you know, their people as extras and let you, you know, use their their places as sets and let you use their equipment and everything. You save a ton of money on that. So a lot of productions partner with them to do that. And, you know, the as Steve calls it, the Faustian bargain there is that they more or less get final say in how things are depicted in your movie. And when the American military is deciding what is depicted in a Godzilla movie, you can see how there's a conflict of interest there.
Yeah. So, you know, like I said, pretty big, decent hit, warranted a sequel. And we also got Skull Island, which I think's probably of all of the Monsterverse movies,
Still
is the
my
best
favorite
one.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, it's the best one. King of the Monsters then was after Skull Island, which is, I think, more or less. I mean, it's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. Yeah.
It's
you
not.
know.
I pretty much enjoyed it. I thought there were a couple things that were just like the oxygen destroyer bullshit. Just didn't need to be
sucked.
in there. Take it right out of the film. It won't even make a difference.
You know, I don't like that. You know, it has this thing where Godzilla becomes this super powered demigod from a nuke. You know,
and then
I remember when
Godzilla
Godzilla used to start melting down, that meant he was like basically dying of cancer.
Gonna die. Yeah.
You know, now it's like, oh, here's a nuke for breakfast, and it's you know, now you can go beat the bad guy, and then everything's gonna be okay. And
Yeah,
it's also just a matter of like, and I don't like, because I see Godzilla Twitter like come up with excuses for this shit all the time. You can't throw Ghidorah, the world-ending space dragon who can shoot like 3 times gravity beams out of his freaking mouth, that Godzilla had to go into like meltdown mode to defeat, and somehow think that some emaciated ape who has control of an ice
dragon
monster, but for reasons, for ways, I guess it have to do with the Fortress of Solitude crystal. Like, how are we like? I guess that's the only disconnect. You sort of have to almost put King of the Monsters like out of your mind to kind of go along with the Godzilla versus Kong and X-Kong kind of storyline. And doesn't it feel, and I could be completely wrong here, but it almost feels like Godzilla X Kong almost treats Godzilla King of the Monsters like it's non-existent, because
it should.
Oh,
it treats it like, oh, Mothra's going to wake up and there's a prophecy, and it's like, Mothra woke up already. This is the second Mothra. This is the second fucking Mothra.
Well, one more thing about King of the Monsters is visually, I think it's one of the ugliest Godzilla movies.
So rainy.
I would have to agree with that. It is really difficult
and I see these people on Twitter that are like, you know, perfect Godzilla shots. Look at this, a gorgeous shot from King of the Monsters, and it's like I can't even tell what I'm looking at. It's like it's like a gray smudge.
Yeah,
I agree. And you know, the editing is also like, why? Pay attention to the editing next time you watch that movie, and like close your eyes for like 5 seconds and then open them, and you'll feel like completely lost. Like it was like edited by a monkey on PCP.
The best thing that came out of that movie, by the way, is when they were like prepping the Rotten Tomatoes score, and they kept like for like a week, and then they come.
Oh, that's one of the best marketing.
45%.
Yeah, you know, they were the Rotten Tomato meter. We're gonna reveal it, and then it was like 20%. And it was like, oh wow,
yeah, it was crazy.
But
they had reviews from Angry Black Nerd trying to support the movie.
To piggyback on what John said, that also brings me to where I probably since like 93-ish, like the middle of the Heisei era, has become like one of my biggest pet peeves with Godzilla, is that he's just an overpowered thing that can do anything now. And it's like,
but he doesn't do it until the end of the fight.
I miss back in the day when, like, yeah, Ghidorah could whoop his ass and fly away. Mothra could beat him. Godzilla could get hurt in a movie, and it could mean something. Now it's like, okay, Godzilla, you know, we're gonna throw the biggest, baddest monster ever, King Ghidorah, at him. But because it's Godzilla, we have to make sure he's overpowered, and he, you know, once he gets his little power up special, he can beat Ghidorah easily. And it's like, that is where the franchise has kind of something that it's lost. I think that goes for Japan and the United States. Godzilla is just this overpowered demigod, and the fandom grafts onto that. That's when you get all the fantasy matches where Godzilla versus this, and no matter what this is, in the comments you see 100 people who think this stuff is real, screaming about, oh, Godzilla did this, and he beat this thing, and he can do this, and this, and this. And it's like, first of all, it's not real. But second of all, that just sucks the stakes out of the situation.
All of it, yeah.
You know,
do you think they wasted, not wasted, sorry, or do you think they used King Ghidorah too soon? Because I think if they're doing a Kong Godzilla trilogy, he would have been the best. He would have been the best final villain.
No, that would have been a
basically
great
Thanos,
foil,
for lack of a better term.
And because of what King Ghidorah is, you can't just be like, oh, there's another one, like you can with Mothra. Like King Ghidorah is who he is. Like with Mothra, you can be like, oh, that's a different Mothra. But yeah, like you have to do an alien invasion, and then aside from the fact that I doubt Legendary, I doubt they're gonna just throw a ton of money at any old monster, because Toho's weird, and each monster has to be licensed individually, and they cost a lot of money.
Expensive, yeah.
You mean you are not expecting Destroyer to show up on this one?
Yes, that is what I mean. And not only that, the movie where they shelled out the most money for other Toho monsters bombed. So they're probably like, okay, you know, whatever the giant threat is going to be it's not going to be Destroyer, it's not going to be Space Vessel, it's going to be some new thing.
I'm so fine with them just creating original monsters.
Yeah, that too. I don't know, like people, you see this with anything. It happened with both Shin Godzilla and -1. Well, what would you like to see in a sequel? And they're like, well, maybe do Anguirus. It's like we saw. What are you talking about? We saw this already.
Yeah,
what should we do next?
And the cool thing was that like you saw this in Pacific Rim, but we actually got to see this with Shimo. I think is you can make monsters that sort of fit that what could have been a Toho monster mold. Like Shimo looked like it could have been, a guy in a suit in the 1960s. Mm-hmm. I thought the design was pretty cool. Had elements of Anguirus and Veron in it and stuff like that. So. Yeah, I mean,
I want them to keep making up, make up new monsters. I want them to get crazier, start doing stuff like people are like, oh, it's so wacky, and it's like it's not really.
You want to get nuts?
I want the new monsters to be if this is really going for a new Showa thing, like start introducing crazy stuff that looks like a child with a sugar rush and a box of crayons drew it, like. In the 70s, we had beetles with drill arms, and like start doing crazy stuff like that. I mean, they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna pay a bunch of money for a monster 10 people have heard of.
Listen, I'll die on the hill that Megalon could use a really good modern day revamp.
Oh yeah, Megalon. Aside from that like little short film, Megalon never really had another chance to shine outside of bouncing around.
Yeah.
But even like, look at sort of some of the inspiration and some of the things. Like, I mean, if you look at like the anime stuff, like the anime trilogy, I wasn't a fan of those movies. Godzilla Singular Point I liked, and especially looking at the way that they did Jet Jaguar in Godzilla.
That is one of probably outside of Kaneko's Gamera trilogy. That's probably the single best like update of a classic character in this genre that I can think of. I thought. Yeah, we're gonna have Jet Jaguar, but he's gonna be a sentient AI robot that is having an existential crisis. That is just, and actually have a character arc. That was amazing to me. That was brilliant.
Yeah, I like that. I like that anime. I know some people it's divisive, but I enjoyed it. I mean, it gets really in the weeds with some of the weird technical. Mumbo jumbo science shit.
I don't think it's hard to people get hung up on that, but I never thought that it was like not explaining itself, and I never thought that like I couldn't.
Maybe you have to pay attention to it. You can't watch it on your phone.
Well, yeah,
you can watch it on your phone, but you can't watch it while you're on your phone. You know what I mean? So yeah. All right, let's also go further back in time now to a
simpler time.
Simpler time
pre 9/11
when our hopes were up.
And true. Yeah.
And a guy by the name of Dean Devlin and his friend Roland Emmerich we're gonna give us the Godzilla movie that we'd all been waiting our lives to see. And of course, I'm talking about the 1998 TriStar masterpiece Godzilla. Directed and co-written by Roland Emmerich, produced by Dean Devlin and Metropolis Entertainment. These two guys were pretty big deal due to Independence Day, which had come
yeah.
out 95 or 6. It was distributed by TriStar. It is the first Godzilla film to be completely produced by a Hollywood studio, and you can tell in every moment and every frame of that movie. It stars Matthew Broderick, Jean Reno, Maria Patillo, Hank Azaria, Kevin Dunn, Michael Lerner, Harry Shearer. It was released in the United States and Canada on May 20th, 1998, to a record 3,310 theaters. Matt, what's this movie about?
That was a nice segue. So I will do my best. The movie kicks off with a nice little credit scene with iguanas and atomic explosions, and we then see Godzilla take down some ships. We have one of the survivors of said ship attack, or one of the ship attacks, talks about Gojira, or as the movie loves to say, it's Gojira, you moron. And so basically the U.S. government begins to investigate the creature attacks. And we are introduced to Patrick Tatapopoulos, the whole joke with him is they can't.
Patrick Tatapopoulos is the special effects
guy.
director. We're introduced to Nick Tatapopoulos.
Yeah, he's the worm guy. Basically,
Worm
he
guy.
studies mutations and different things. He has a love interest played by Maria Patillo, who she's now a reporter in New York City. And so they're able to sort of meet and try to rekindle this weird on-again, off-again flame. So basically what we have is Godzilla shows up about a third of the way through the movie. You finally get to see him as he comes ashore in New York City and looks.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Because the first third of this movie is pretty good.
It is pretty good. I've always said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's
And
a lot of
then-
tension.
I think
And
so.
then
And then we
next
saw the
two-thirds
creature.
happen. Yeah, and then the next 2/3 happen. So go on.
Godzilla shows up. You see the creature. It eats a lot of fish. The military is portrayed kind of like incompetent idiots. You have Mayor Spielberg, who they make fun of the entire time.
Mayor Spielberg. Mayor
Mayor Spielberg.
Spielberg?
Sorry, I'm crossing my.
You're
Listen,
thinking of Major Spielberg.
there we
man.
go.
You're
Yeah,
Wrong
I was
movie.
crossing my. It's the wrong movie. Listen, I've had a lot of alcohol, so I'm going to blame that for.
That might be the title of the episode.
I was going to say that's. A
Mayor
year ago,
Spielberg.
that would have been my excuse.
You have the mayor of New York City that they make fun of the entire time, isn't it?
Ebert.
Ebert. Yeah,
Ebert.
there we
Mayor
go.
Ebert.
They hated Roger Ebert.
And his assistant's name was
Gene.
Gene.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Siskel. Basically, what it boils down to is the military does more destruction to the city than Godzilla does. Godzilla runs. Godzilla is, we learn, pregnant, and they find this out with a pregnancy, literally a pregnancy test.
Yeah.
Yes.
From like a
They-
Walgreens or something.
Yeah, from like a
Yeah,
drug
they,
Like
lab.
Dwayne Reed, just go into Dwayne Reed and get a freaking pregnancy test.
We Jean Reno, who is awesome in this movie. We learn that the French nuclear test, not the American
Not
nuclear
the
test, but
American
the
ones.
French nuclear tests are
Even though they very
responsible,
clearly show the American ones in the opening things.
responsible for creating Godzilla. Godzilla is thought to be a species of iguana. And then they rip off Jurassic Park, and you have little baby Godzillas running around and tripping on
Gumballs.
marble,
Popcorn
yeah.
machines, yeah.
And then Godzilla dies on a bridge. And
Yeah,
by conventional
that's the end.
weapons. That's the end,
Yeah,
yeah.
by
All right, everybody, thank you for listening to Gen X Lounge. We'll be back next week.
So Sony expected the film to gross $100 million during the opening weekend, which was Memorial Day weekend. It was expected to set a record for the holiday. So it made $12.5 million on opening day, and it made $44 million during the opening weekend. So it was not. It was not
That's
a
not great.
success. No, it did for the 4-day holiday weekend. It did $55 million, almost $56 million. Did $74 million in its first 6 days, which is well below expectations. The revenue dropped. Speaking of dropped 60% in the second week, where it only earned $18 million. It went on to do $136 million total domestically through an 8-week theatrical. Remember when movies would run for 8 weeks? What a time! Internationally, it took an additional $242 million. So worldwide, total was 379 million, which is not quite a flop, but it definitely was not the movie that was hyped and advertised. And this movie was hyped. I mean,
A ton.
the advertising for this movie was actually the best. Like we talked about earlier, was the best thing about the movie. It was the only thing that they really did well. The signs and
I'm
stuff.
trying to think of like movies from like the 80s and 90s that had. I mean, Batman had a huge marketing campaign. And that, like, I can't think of many that had bigger marketing campaigns than Godzilla in 1998.
No,
The trailer that played before Men in Black, where Godzilla steps on the T-Rex.
That's still one of the best.
It's one of the best
to
ever.
this day. That's one of my favorite movie trailers.
We talked about
that trailer cost $600,000 to make. It was actually supposed to be in the movie, and it was not in the movie at all. The second trailer was great. It was at the beginning of Starship Troopers.
Oh yeah, Starship
which is the one where the guy's fishing.
That was in the movie. Yeah.
That is in the movie.
That was a great. I like that one.
That's a great trailer too. I like that movie. The opening credits are great. The music is well done. The images of the iguanas and the explosion, all that's good. The boats being dragged under by their nets. That sequence is great.
It is great. Yeah.
All practical, mostly practical effects.
Yeah,
I think CGI people.
Yeah, the footprints of that whole sequence is good. The guy fishing and the dorsals coming toward the docks is great. Him even being on the docks, and picking up the truck in his mouth is all good. Him almost stepping on Hank Azaria that's kind of like the line where the movie just turns into unwatchable crap. Like from that point on, it's fucking terrible. And it does that thing that so many 90s movies do, where the CG has not aged well.
It has in most parts of the movie. There were some parts where it gets like after I remember after Godzilla gets hit by the torpedoes and kind of rolls out of the mist underwater, that looked a little janky.
Yeah, to me, I would rather watch bad practical effects than bad CG.
Well, what they were doing with CG at the time was almost unprecedented when you really look at what they were doing. And so some shots look like crap, but then there's other things that look really good. Like at the stuff that we see in movies every day now is stuff that this movie was doing and kind of figuring it out a little bit on its own.
Let's be very honest. There were a lot of CGI effects in Godzilla 98 that look a hell of a lot better than things we get today.
But like, I mean, the level of sophistication that it took to do something like, when Godzilla is on the bridge at the end and, every little brick falling, that was all digital. And back then, you didn't get CG shots quite as advanced as that a lot. And so, as far as how that stuff is aged, I can excuse, Godzilla looking awful and like practically transparent when he comes out of the sewer because I know that there's other things that they were doing that were really ambitious at the time. What this movie is, though, I don't think it's even debatable, is it's one of, along with Starship Troopers, like someone had mentioned Starship Troopers, it's one of a handful of movies towards the end of the 90s, early 2000s that was kind of the last gasp of air for practical effects.
At least in the way that they were applied in 1990s movies, where the CGI was always in service,
enhancing
typically, to the real background.
And it's easy to get hung up on the CG because it's kind of what we're trained to scrutinize. But when you look at the practical effects, whether it's the animatronic baby Godzillas or the miniatures, miniature work in that movie is pretty
really
incredible.
good.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, was that there is a high level of craftsmanship in that.
The big it's like
the big Godzilla.
The big Godzilla, the big practical Godzilla is really cool.
I think the best effects are the effects that are like practical effects enhanced by CG.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the stuff that's just straight CG is where, where it really shows.
And the times when they did Man in Suit as well, like every time like he would crash through a building, I think
they did a little bit of everything. And along with Starship Troopers, the Mighty Joe Young remake. There's a handful of other monster movies from that time period. Like that was like the last of that. And so there's a little bit where you can kind of get nostalgic for that.
Go back to 1998 when you saw that movie in the theater. I remember. I went from, and I don't know how we were all probably subscribing to G-Fan. G-Fan is a Godzilla fanzine for those who aren't in the know. And I remember when the images hit G-Fan of what Godzilla looked like, my hype for the movie went directly into the crapper because it looks nothing like Godzilla. We knew it wasn't going to look quite like Godzilla based on the trailers.
Didn't TriStar try to say that those were fakes?
And they tried to say that they were fake pictures, and obviously they were not fake pictures. And then as the days got closer, and specifically the day before I saw the movie, I was so hyped. I did a complete 180. And I was so hyped, and I was like, there's no way this isn't going to be good. This is going to be incredible. And I rounded up. And I mean, Quinn tells the story, on the show. He's told the story at least once, how we went in a giant group. We took up a whole row. Nobody was into Godzilla except me. They all went for me. And at the end of the movie, they all walked by me and shook my hand.
Your ass for that?
And said, "I'm sorry." No, they all walked by me and they all individually shook my hand or patted me on the back and said they were sorry, like I was standing next to the coffin of my dad. You know what I mean? Like that's basically what it was like. It was like
a little bit.
It was like a funeral procession of God. It was just like, sorry, man, sorry. And I just remember watching that movie, and when he's running away from the helicopters in the military, just being like, I looked at my girlfriend at the time, and I was just like, what in the fuck? Why is he running from these fucking helicopters? So I'm curious, what is your memories of that? Because I know you guys are a little younger than me, but I guess I'll go first because I feel like my answer is going to be different from everybody's. Like you said, you have about 10 years on me in age, so I was younger, and I didn't have as visceral of a reaction as most of the people that I talk to, my age or older or younger, whatever. It wasn't like that was awful, I hated everything about it. It was more just I was kind of just perplexed by it. Like I was just kind of, it ended, and I was just kind of like, huh. It didn't, it didn't feel like someone smacked me in the face or ruined my childhood or whatever. I was just kind of like, huh, that's weird. And I was like everyone, I was really swept up in the moment of, the last, I got into Godzilla around second grade. This movie came out in when I was in seventh grade. So it was like, this thing that everyone thought I was just kind of like weird for liking is like kind of out there, and I was really enjoying the moment. And so I kind of existed outside of the movie, kind of like existed outside of all that a little bit for me. And my initial reaction was more just like, okay, that was Godzilla, but it was also kind of not. Like what? Like I was like 13, so like my critic, I knew what a truly awful, irredeemable movie was, because the first time I realized movies could suck was when I went and saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. And I didn't have a reaction like that. It was just kind of more of a confusion. And I wasn't like, oh, I hate this. I was just kind of like, that's weird. Like, why did they do this way? And so I saw it, again, and in the many years since, for multiple reasons. I've probably seen that movie more than any sane person should, and it's probably done, irreversible brain damage at this point to me. But yeah, I was really just kind of just perplexed by it. Like,
what exactly were they going for here? And not like,
that's still a good question to this day.
And it wasn't until, you know, I started, you know, reading, you know, some of the more behind the scenes stuff that it was like, okay, these guys were really, they didn't want to make this movie.
No, I don't think they did.
And then I started to understand why it is the way it is. And now that I'm older and now that, you know, I'm more well-versed in just, you know, film stuff, you know, I can look at it and be like, yeah, the movie is as bad as it ever was. But at the time, as a 13-year-old kid, you know, just going into middle school and feeling like Godzilla was like in the zeitgeist, I was just kind of like, my reaction wasn't, oh, I love it, or oh, I hate it. My reaction was more just like, what? You know?
Yeah.
So you know, I absolutely understand everyone that's like, oh, I walked out feeling like, you know, I got slapped in the face. But when as a kid, I just walked out just kind of being like, not really understanding what I had just seen.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. I don't think I was mad when I left the movie. I think I was really profoundly bummed out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, what a wasted opportunity for something that like I had wanted to see forever, you know, which is like a big budgeted movie. I didn't care that it was a big budgeted American Godzilla movie. I just wanted to see a Godzilla movie made with state of the art effects.
And up until 2014, it really seemed like this was the only shot we were ever going to have at this.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, blew it. I guess, you know, sucks, but, you know, guess we're never going to see something like that again. And then, you know, 2014 comes along, and even you know, because I think Legendary got the rights a few years earlier than that. And
they
even
got
then
the
it was
rights,
like,
I think, in 2010.
Yeah, and even then it was like, well, I'll believe it when my butt's in the
right,
theater.
like, because I'm like, really, they're going to do a new American,
you know,
movie? Like, where'd this come from?
But yeah, it really felt like, well, that's never going to happen again. Oh well. You know, guess that's just life sometimes.
It definitely did. It felt like everything was hopeless after that. I remembered I went to see it at the United Artists over in Allentown, right across from the prison. And I walked out just feeling, because I was overly hyped.
Went directly to the prison. Like, I'd rather be here.
There's like, I'm 13 years old. There's no way this movie's going to suck. Independence Day's great. There's no way. And boy, did it just suck. And it was just, I mean, I think if I were to describe the two most soul-crushing movie experiences of my life, it was 98 and it was Batman versus Superman. And I don't let movies do that to me anymore. I just simply don't. I'm like, you know what? They're just movies.
Yeah, you can't let it. Yeah, you can't.
That's why I like Godzilla versus Kong. It's like I don't necessarily like the direction, but whatever. It's not going to hurt it's not going to change my life if it's out there.
That's how I prefer to look at things now too, especially with a franchise with as many movies as Godzilla. Yeah. Whenever there's a new one, I don't get too hyped. I don't get, you know, I go into each one thinking, well, if this sucks, I still got, you know, 30 other movies at home that I love that I can watch anytime I want.
Yeah. They're movies. They're entertainment. They're not worth getting violent and stupid about, even though, you know,
that's what the internet is now.
That's what the internet is. Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, but I'll tell you what, so I wouldn't necessarily say I think I've softened on Godzilla 1998 from the aspect of like, I still think it's a shit movie. I don't like hate it with all my soul. I've actually seen, you know, including our friend Patrick, you know, that was his first Godzilla movie. And I've seen a generation of Godzilla fans who like the movies that we like and went back. So it's like, but their first Godzilla movie was Godzilla 1998.
Every Godzilla movie, good or bad, is going to be someone's first.
Yeah.
And so whether that person ages into realizing like, oh, that was actually really bad, you know, they're still always it's still gonna, you know, as awful as 98 is, you know, the people that was the first Godzilla movie, even the ones that saw the rest and don't really like it, it's still gonna mean something to them. And, you know, you can't take that away from anyone.
And I'll tell you this, I think the animated series sort of proved that the design wasn't really the big problem. In that.
I will die on this hill. The animated series is the best Godzilla anything.
Watchmen
to come out of like to come out. Okay, well, technically, Godzilla 2000 came out in 1999. I'd say the two best Godzilla anythings to come out of the 90s are Godzilla 2000 and the Godzilla animated series. I would put that above any of the Heisei movies after Biollante.
That's worth a discussion. I don't know if I'd agree with that, but I mean, like the way that I look at like the design of Godzilla '98, like I thought that there was a little bit something missing from like the concept designs and like the maquette to like the actual.
The design,
like,
honestly,
it just seemed like the face got like thicker and like more rectangular.
The design honestly was never a big deal to me. It was like, okay, this isn't what I would have done, but for
like, let's put it this way: if the monster acted like Godzilla and the movie played more like maybe a slightly more traditional Godzilla movie, I think you're going to be more accepting of that design.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, as a model kit builder and painter, I still one day love to build and paint.
It's a cool creature design, regardless.
Paint Godzilla 1998. I would love to paint Godzilla 98.
I'm with you though in that the movie itself is as bad as it ever was. Outside of that Polygon anime trilogy, I would say is the worst in the franchise. But the movie is as bad as ever, but I don't look at it as this abhorrent affront to, you know, the genre or the franchise as I used to. And there's a few reasons for that. And you know, I guess, I don't know, I've said this on my own podcast before. Sort of a controversial take maybe is, you know, I think it might be time to let the Geno Godzilla name only thing rest because, and let me explain why. Yes, it's true. Godzilla is not a mutated iguana that runs around, but you know what Godzilla also isn't? He's not a weird shape-shifting, you know, thing made up of a bunch of other living creatures that has people growing out of him.
And eyeballs everywhere.
Yeah, he's also not an interdimensional being that exists outside of time and space, like Singular Point. He's not this weird gigantic plant-based whatever that he is in the Polygon things. What I'm trying to say is we've had takes just as weird and crazy and outside the box and un-Godzilla from Japan. That we don't call Geno, and this is just another.
Dude, there's people who call the 2014 Godzilla Geno.
Yeah, those people
like unironically, totally unironically, not realizing that is just not not the flex they think it is.
And so now that we're so far removed from the year 1998, it's just time to realize, hey, this is just another take on Godzilla that was really different, and it didn't work, and it sucked, but whatever.
I call him Godzilla 1990. Occasionally, I still throw Geno out there, but that's more like muscle memory. Like I just call him Godzilla 98.
And the other reason I've softened on just it in concept, outside of like we've seen just as crazy stuff in the years since. Outside of that, though, is that when you look at the net positive, I think it did a lot of good for the franchise, in spite of itself. Because
before you get to that bird though, like I want to just share because I like where you're going. I was 12 when this came out, and my dad's.
God almighty, I'm old.
I was 12. I was almost 13.
Oh, this is a good story. I've heard.
My dad showed me my first Godzilla movie, which was Godzilla 1985. He got me hooked on Godzilla.
That's a good one.
My dad. He took me to this movie, but he said before it was like, this is just parental wisdom. He was like, man, I hope you don't have to get your hopes up. And that like sort of cushioned the blow because I actually did not subscribe to G-Fest at the time, or G-Fan. I didn't know what the design was going to be. I hadn't seen it ahead of time. And so when I saw the movie, this was like this is the most soul crushing a kid can feel because I was so hyped.
Yeah.
And like, thankfully my dad like kind of prepared me a bit for that with his little comment, but like it was the most disappointed I've ever been in a movie theater. Now I was 12, so
yeah,
like life goes on. But I walked out of that theater not like just like what the heck did I just watch? That was not Godzilla. That movie was terrible, and just honest like bummed. I think I was bummed for a couple of days, honestly. And
yeah, I mean, the good thing now is that it is 1998, right? So, and it's so far in the past.
Oh yeah.
That,
needless to say, Godzilla has recovered.
Godzilla, yeah, and
right.
But at the time when that was Godzilla, and it was that Toho isn't making Godzilla movies anymore because this is Godzilla now. was
It
so
felt,
like,
it felt so much more apocalyptic.
yeah, it was so bad. It was like, dude, I
Also-
can't believe.
And then Toho was like, "Nah, we're coming back."
yeah,
How many
Yeah.
movies do you know that also ended a toy company? Because like Trendmasters,
Yes.
R.I.P.
I was going to bring that
Oh,
up.
yeah,
So
they,
Trendmasters was a toy company. They put out a lot of toys in the
They did
late
really
90s,
cool stuff.
mid-90s.
Actually, I loved.
Yeah,
we
not
got-
just
we got-
Godzilla stuff.
Yeah, they
but
did
they,
Polly
Godzilla,
Pocket.
Tarzan,
yeah.
Gamera.
yeah, a lot of stuff, and they went all in on Godzilla. On the Godzilla '98. They also
Yeah,
put out
they took
classic.
a bath on those.
Yeah, they put out a lot of classic Godzilla figures prior to '98,
Yep.
and then they
And now
went
that's
all
the gag.
in.
Those are all super collectible now.
Yeah, and they went all in on Godzilla movie figures, and the movie did not succeed. The design did not catch on,
Yeah.
and it bankrupted their company.
Yeah.
So
No, Trendmaster, they were already like dying.
They weren't doing great.
There,
They
there
weren't
was
doing
a,
great.
there was a lot of funny business going on there. There was some embezzlement and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. But the Godzilla license and the just figures just hanging on shelves, that was just kind of that was one of the last nails in the coffin where it was like.
Do you think maybe they were hoping that like getting them not because like you got to figure like if they were already kind of in dire straits, then to go. I mean that license could not have been cheap. By any stretch of the imagination.
Oh God, no.
So you have to think maybe they thought that would be like the thing
Try
that
to save
revives them.
Yeah.
And then it just ends up.
Well,
Yeah.
they also made like 1 million human character figures, which nobody like. That's not what kids buy.
And they,
I
and they
really
pumped
wanted
out
a-
a ton
I
of
wanted
those.
a Nick
before the movie
Totopoulos figure.
came out.
I still have a carded Nick Totopoulos figure in my collection.
Nice. I have the genre.
No,
no
I
one.
don't.
I have the genre no one somewhere. Who is? I would take Jean Reno in this movie over probably any character in the Monsterverse.
He's
They
great
should have
in
made
everything
Jean
he
Reno.
does, though.
If Jean Reno was the main character, the movie's automatically somewhat better.
Listen,
Yeah.
the dude knows how to chew gum. That's what we learned in
Yeah.
them.
No, Jean Reno gets you. Jean Reno is the one thing that like kind of gets you through this movie. Like kind of like makes it so he's that spoonful of sugar, you know, that makes the rest go down. He's like, you know, he's like, you know, when you watch that movie, you're like, God, this is bad. And then every time Jean Reno's on the screen, it's like he's holding your hand. He's like, come on,
He's
buddy.
the only one who
We can
has
do
like
this.
legitimate screen presence in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think if the look, you know what you're gonna get. It's a late '90s sci-fi action movie, so you already know
We're in
you're
the
going to
post
get.
Jurassic Park era. We've got
You already
Deep
know what you're
Impact,
going to get as far
Armageddon.
as you're going to get the goofy, not that '90s humor.
Yep. Oh yeah.
You know, it's a Dean Devlin, Roland Emmerich movie, so you also know you're going to get their brand of goofy '90s humor.
And-
You're also
and-
going to get too many characters because they cram characters in their movies. Like all that would have been okay, I think, if you got even if the Godzilla was the Godzilla we got, the design we got, if it just was a Godzilla movie. You know what I mean? And
yeah, and
if he acted like he's supposed to act, and if he fought the military, and if he didn't run, and if he wasn't born pregnant, and all those things.
What really does it though? Because we're talking about the movie is fairly it plays like a fairly normal kaiju movie up until Godzilla comes out and starts running away from stuff, and that's when it's like, okay, we're losing it here. Where the movie really is like too far gone is when all the eggs hatch
In Madison Square Garden scene.
and it
baby
becomes and it basically becomes a Jurassic Park mockbuster at that point. It becomes the asylum version of Jurassic Park at that point.
Yeah.
And
I don't
that's
think
where
it's quite,
for a
it's
long
not
time.
quite that bad.
but you see what I'm saying? That's where
Maybe I don't know. Maybe.
it becomes so obviously a Jurassic Park ripoff that it's like this movie is too far gone now. It cannot be. It is beyond the point of redemption,
and it just doesn't. And it goes on and on and on. That Madison Square Garden scene.
It's so
just
long.
Oh,
It is so-
I because like I said, I saw the movie a few times when it was in theaters, and at every screening I went to, there was at least one or two people that when they blow up Madison Square Garden, they got up and walked out. because they're like, oh, the movie's over now, and I got
25.
They were
they sell it. They sell it like that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, and they're probably thinking like, okay, the movie's over now. I gotta go rush and gotta go pick up the kids, and I gotta go grocery shopping and all this, and so they're out of the theater at that point. Yeah, and then like I'm sitting there like having already seen it. I'm like, well, there's like 40 more minutes.
Yeah, it's so much more, and like it was on. It was on Pluto, I think, maybe a couple months ago, and I was like, you know what, let me kind of half watch this, and then it got to that Madison Square Garden part, and I was like, fuck, I forgot all about this, and this part is like I cannot sit through this again. So I just ended up turning it off at the Madison Square Garden part because I'm like, I just don't want to watch this part. So bad.
These train guys with guns were getting ripped apart by these things, but yet somehow Matthew Broderick and company, they can just kind of Mr. Magoo their way through Madison Square Garden without even like. Yeah.
And
it's like, oh my God, how are we going to get past them? I'll just shoot the chandeliers down. That'll scare them.
Yeah.
They ain't going to be hungry enough to come after us.
It's so fucking bad.
Yeah.
So this movie did not do well critically. It did not do particularly well commercially.
Yeah.
There was a trilogy planned. At least a sequel was definitely planned, where it was going to be one of the surviving babies grows up to be another Godzilla, fights a giant bee. I want to say,
and not for nothing, Brian. If you get a chance, we had Tab Murphy on Kaiju Masterclass, and he wrote that for that, and he actually goes through and gives the synopsis of it. It actually sounded, if you were going to be able to move on and kind of salvage Godzilla 98, it might have worked.
To give Roland and Dean credit, with where they were heading with that sequel, it does sound like they were listening and saying, I mean, as disrespectful as their comments about the older movies were, it does sound like if you listen to that Tab Murphy interview or watch that Tab Murphy interview on YouTube, because he wrote that script for them, it does sound like everyone was kind of like, guys, we messed up, and we're okay. We're gonna do a sequel. Let's try to get this right.
Dean Devlin's come out and even said recently that they fucked up.
Yeah.
You know,
and Devlin, I don't.
Guess?
I don't hate. Devlin has always struck me as a little bit more sincere than Emmerich. Emmerich has always been like, yeah, Godzilla, whatever. I didn't want to do it. Like where he was pushing to topless with that design was made to turn Toho off. He didn't want
why would you waste your time? Why not just say no?
He did. He said no a bunch of times. And then they offered him what he said is more money than you could imagine. So much money that he couldn't say no, basically. But like in his gut, he was still kind of like, "Ugh, I really wish I could do something else."
A few years earlier, for the same amount of money, we could have had, gestures.
Well, yeah, that's the real gag of all of this. Is the DeBont version was canned even after they had cast the movie and they were building sets and stuff.
Yeah, we talked about that. I think I mentioned that on this show before. For people who don't know what we're talking about, the director of Speed, Jan DuBont, was going to direct the Godzilla movie, and that was going to be what in
94,
yeah,
which would have been right after Speed.
Yeah.
And was he the director of Speed, or was he just a cinematographer?
He was
the director.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was a famous cinematographer before he was a
prior
director.
To Speed. Yeah. So, and that movie was basically ready to go. Sets were built, script was done, cast was cast. And then the budget, Sony balked at, and he ended up basically taking his cast from that movie and making Twister.
Yeah, over to Twister. Yeah, but the funny thing is, like, the budget that he wanted to do that for, they ended up spending like 2-3 times that.
Yeah, it was way over what he
the final movie. And it was one of those things where it was like TriStar and Toho were equally desperate to just have something off the ground, and they they hired a guy that almost begged not to do it, and then they were like, well, what if we give you like all the money in the world? And he was like, okay.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing I want to say is just like a lot of people fault Roland and Dean, but like the reality is like Toho, like this, they still approved all this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's not like
I mean, I don't know, but yeah, we can't absolve Toho of any guilt because
the Doohoo Corporation.
Yeah, at the end of the day,
At
the end of the day, Toho are the ones that gave the thumbs up. They're the ones that signed. They're the ones that signed the checks, and
then
we got
Devlin cashed them.
You know, yeah, we got what we got, man.
I think the last thing that I would like to say, and this just kind of going where Bird was going earlier before I cut him off, was that I do think that 98 has a net positive, and that's the fact that we got the Godzilla 98 cartoon, which for my money is the best cartoon adaptation we've had of Godzilla. It's a great show.
It's really good.
Pretty good.
It's really, really good. But then you got the Heisei era films that got released
on VHS.
It finally opened up Godzilla in North America, and we didn't have that previous to this. So, like, I think overall it's still a net positive. The movie sucks.
Yeah,
but there were some positive things that came out.
As much as the fans don't like it, and as much as the general public didn't really click with it, there's still something. I don't know if it's nostalgia or curiosity or what, but this movie still runs on cable on a fairly regular basis. From what I understand, it's still one of, if not the highest. I mean, I don't know about the Monsterverse stuff. Like this information's a little out of date, but for a while it was still the biggest seller of Godzilla movies on DVD. So like Toho and Sony are still making money from it. And ultimately that's kind of the rising tide, raises all ships cliche of like, it did keep the brand in the public consciousness. And I think part of 2014 being such a big curiosity and why it's still one of the higher grossing Monsterverse movies is because when that came out, I think a lot of people were like, well, they can't get this wrong twice. Let's check it out.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, everyone ended up making money, and Godzilla is a
better
brand
than ever.
Has survived, and it's survived so far past the damage of 98 that now the 98 movie is just like a weird little footnote in Godzilla history.
It
really is.
And there's a whole generation. There's even like a younger generation of Godzilla fans that will never even know what 2005 through like 2013 was like.
And how weird that was. Like
the wasteland of nothing.
Yeah,
nothing going on.
We kind of lived through it twice because we had the 98.
It was like the Great Godzilla Depression of our era.
Yeah, the 98 movie was like, well, that's Hollywood's last chance at this. No one's going to give them another shot. And then
the Millennium films were hit and miss. Box office
financial disaster of Final Wars, and honestly, really all of the Millennium series, like that entire series.
What was the biggest grossing? Was it GMK was the biggest grossing?
Yeah, and even that was like it did okay.
Did fine. Yeah. Did fine.
And so with all those Millennium movies not making any money and then ending on the financial embarrassment of Final Wars box office, it really did seem like
nobody wanted Godzilla.
Like Godzilla was done. Yeah.
Like, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe it's over.
Yeah, I kind of thought that for a long time.
And honestly, I say this even loving movies like -1 and Singular Point and some of the other things we've had in the years since. But if it did end right there at Final Wars, I would still have a good solid franchise of where I like more entries than not. And at the end of the day, I would have been able to be like, yeah, I can there's plenty of Godzilla movies I can choose from if I want to watch one. Now we're just going to keep getting them until the sun burns out.
Until the sun supernovas and we're all dead.
It's
so crazy, man. It's so crazy that we're probably going to get a trilogy of Godzilla and Kong movies. Like, it's
and I'm sure. Yeah. Even if the movies end the next Godzilla and Kong, how wild is it? We know Toho always wanted Kong back in the game. How wild is it that it actually that was another thing we never thought would happen was, because the only people making Godzilla movies were Toho and they could never afford the rights to King Kong. And then once we're in Hollywood, hey, we're with Kong again. So it's been a really weird thing to see all this stuff that we never thought we would have gotten, for better and worse. Do
you ever think there's too much of a good thing?
Oh yeah. And
there's a lot of Toho is just shilling out like Godzilla merch. Like you got
the merchandise is crazy.
Godzilla store.
It feels like anybody can get a Godzilla license now.
It used to be stuff. When I first got into Godzilla, the only toys you could get in America were the Imperial figures, and then a few years later, Trendmasters had all the stuff, and then every now and then,
if you were lucky and had like a comic shop where you lived near a Pony Toy, then
you could get like the Dark Horse comics, or every now and then,
like the Bondi toys.
Or you had the Random House books, and here and there would be things, but now it's like go into almost any store, throw a rock, and you're gonna hit a Godzilla.
Yeah, but legit, any store, any big chain, anything, you'll find.
It's
something.
crazy. Walmart sells Godzilla shirts. Like it's
Kroger has Godzilla shirts.
Yeah,
insane.
It's nuts, man.
It's great that so many kids are really latching onto it. I mean, kids love this stuff, love it, and it's when we all got into it, and we always knew kids would love it. But now that there's stuff coming out that kids can watch, and they're not having to have their grandparents drive them to video stores and rent movies from the 60s. A lot more kids are into it, and that's really cool. So that's the upside of it. The downside of it is, where we do get into the just over corporatization of an IP, to where you're just drowned in merch. And like we said with Marvel, and we've seen this happen with Marvel and Star Wars. I don't want this, and it's very close. It's very close. I don't want this to just become something where I'm just bludgeoned every 3 months by a new thing I feel like I just have to watch.
Consume product and get excited for next product.
Yeah, enjoy the content.
And and we're that's the direction we're heading. And hey, if that's what's going to happen, if every couple of years I get something as cool as -1 or Singular Point or whatever, that'll be the silver lining. And but it is a bizarre time to be a Godzilla fan, because like I said, Godzilla is now as mainstream. It might not make as much money as an Avengers Endgame, but it's just as mainstream and walk into a store, find a t-shirt, as any other property under the sun.
It's pretty crazy.
And the movies don't. It's not like they cost like $300-400 million to make. So
yeah.
Maybe Adam Wingard's right. Maybe the way forward is the sillier. I don't know. I mean, it's like it seems to be responding well with the audience. So.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna get more of, I think, for sure.
But you know what? And this is where I also push back on, when you do offer up criticisms of some of the Monsterverse films. Oh, they're just silly, cartoony, they're kids movies, whatever. It's like, who else makes kids movies? Ghibli, Pixar. Give me something that does have like a real core to it and make me care about the storyline and the characters.
Are you insinuating that Bernie wasn't a good character? How dare you?
Yeah. I've had enough of Bernie.
Me too.
But yeah, I mean, we've seen silly Godzilla movies that can also be poignant and have really entertaining and charming characters.
Son of Godzilla.
Monster Zero, Glenn and Fuji aren't the most deep characters, but they're super fun to hang out with.
Exactly.
You would watch a buddy movie of just those guys.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It is the closest thing we have to a Godzilla buddy movie.
That's what I always said, is like, how to say if a Godzilla movie is truly really good, if you could take all the kaiju out of it, would you still watch that?
Yeah, exactly.
Like Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, I would watch those.
It's a good movie. I would watch that because it would make a good adventure.
I would watch that cast.
Movie.
I would watch that cast bumble around an island without the monsters.
Yeah, I agree. I always say that about that.
Would I watch, all these people that just these exposition machines without the monsters?
No,
probably not. So they can aim a little higher there, but
yeah, I agree. Well, listen, guys, thank you both for jumping on. I super appreciate it. Love talking Godzilla. And plug your show. Tell people where to find you.
So yes, Matt and I, you can catch us on the Kaiju Transmissions Podcast. And we cover not just Godzilla, but Gamera, Kong, anything with giant monsters in it, or anything that is, or if it's, a Japanese science fiction or horror property, it's all fair game to us. We don't discriminate at Kaiju Transmissions. And then me, Matt, and John, you can see some of our work for Kaiju Masterclass. It started as an online convention, and then now it's just kind of a whenever we land a cool in-depth interview or something, you know, it's a YouTube channel that we don't update with any regularity, but you know, it's where if we have something cool, we just kind of put it out there and hope people pay attention. But
we'll surprise you every now.
Yeah,
and then.
we have cool interviews that we've you know, name dropped and plugged during the course of this, and but yeah, check out Kaiju Masterclass on YouTube and Kaiju Transmissions Podcast. That's where you can hear some of our stuff. And then I don't know if John wants to plug anything. You can catch him on some of the Masterclass stuff, but he might have some.
Yeah, John, what do you want?
I've been plugging my stuff week after week on here, which hasn't been much lately, but maybe soon.
All right,
Anyway,
thank you. Thanks so much for jumping on. Like I said, thank you all for listening. If you could leave us a 5-star review, that'd be cool. And if you could tell your friends to listen to the show, that'd be cool, because that's how we get new listeners. And I think having said that, we are done. Bye.